So here we are again. After yesterday's somewhat interesting discussions in Parliament, because that's what we're going to talk about today, they were very, very interesting because it says a lot about the country's priorities that they're not willing to, shall we say, call back Parliament to discuss problems about Brexit or maybe what's going on in Northern Ireland or anything else, but this certainly seemed to, shall we say, raise the roof definitely in Parliament. And I think this was very, very much prompted by the Conservatives. Oh, there we go. Because I think that with everything that had gone on, with Rab being, well, literally on the beach, shall we say, during all this, I don't think the Tories would have gotten away with this. I think that this whole thing was orchestrated by backbench MPs because they very, very clearly wanted to make their voices heard. And we're going to get into some of the discussions that went on and, of course, what the potential consequences of this might be. So, before we do jump into that, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And, of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And, as always, thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel that way. So, discussions yesterday. The two big ones, the main themes, definitely yesterday, from a discussion that went on from about 9 o'clock until at least gone 5. Main discussion points were, how did this happen, first of all? And I think that this is, and it was, you could see a lot of even the Conservatives were going around and, shall we say, spreading the blame. Not only were they blaming mainly Trump, because again, he started this, they then blamed Biden, but also they were blaming Johnson for it as well, for being, as usual, asleep at the wheel. Even Theresa May literally must have got some iron stilettos on and was literally laying into Boris. In fact, she gave what I would say was probably one of her best performances of her life in the House of Commons. And it's often kind of shocking where you have a lot of people who were MPs who have stood up to be party leaders or prime ministers, and very often after the fact, they often find a spine and start really laying it in. Because I think that after taking, shall we say, the top job, they know they've got nothing else left to lose, and they've been in the top job, so they no longer have to, shall we say, kowtow to the other powers that might be, that maybe, shall we say, applicable to getting them into that top job anymore. So that was overly very, very interesting to see, giving the boot to Theresa May. But really the follow-up to this was definitely, and I think definitely sinking in, the lack of, shall we say, powerlessness that Britain actually has on the world stage. And it's about time. We've been talking a lot, especially during Brexit, about how there is this form of exceptionalism and the power that Britain really doesn't have anymore, especially when it comes to America. Because there were a lot of people being incredibly shocked that we couldn't influence America on this. And how could we not influence America on this? And yet, you've only got to go back to Charles de Gaulle, one of his two original points was that Britain was facing a geographical identity crisis, not being able to accept that it was part of Europe, while, shall we say, very coyly waving, shall we say, at the United States across the pond. You know, it could not be part of North America, hence why de Gaulle continuously, again during his tenure, blocked off Britain from joining back in the 60s. So it seems high time now that maybe this reality will start to sink in, because there was a lot of talk about the fact that Britain should not be relying on one ally anymore. And there was a lot of talk about engaging with France and Germany. So that could be very interesting, and it almost certainly does spell, going further down the line, a lot of the more moderate conservatives who do understand the fact that, again, we are part of Europe, might be able to get some toe and leverage in back once again into the Conservative Parliamentary Party. And it does seem that Theresa May is almost certainly leading them. The other thing, of course, was talked about was, of course, the refugees. And I am pretty much on the table that we must accept as many refugees as we can, but we also have to come up with programs and policies, both long and short term, that will be able to help these people integrate, as well as help the communities that they integrate into as well. And of course, these are the two very things that the Tories do not want to do. And that came out, and we saw that split. We saw a lot of Tories who were saying, look, we need to help these people. We're not going to place an arbitrary number on this. We should be helping as many people as quickly as we can. We should be setting up safe routes out of Afghanistan and helping them to get here to the UK. Now, of course, you listen to that and then you think about the last couple of years. None of that seems to fit in any way, shape or form with the Tory party that we've come to know. So I am indeed highly sceptical, shall we say, that any of these promises of accepting at least more refugees into this country will be accepted or even voted on. And of course, you've got to remember, the MPs went back on holiday after this. So there was no vote or anything like that. It was just, we're going to come in, we're going to vent our frustration at Boris, and that was it. And it was really shocking. And of course, I talked about just a bit ago about there being, policies and spending money. And there were even some Conservative MPs who were saying that there need to be these programs in place and these policies in place. Because again, we've done this before. But not a lot of people, especially the Conservatives, seem to be awfully forgetful about the fact that we've done this before. Many times. Syria, in, Yugoslavia, in Bosnia. You go back to Nairobi, in Gambia years ago. You can just keep on going of when Britain has accepted these refugees. But of course, with this current, shall we say, Tory party, who has been incredibly anti-immigrant and immigration, whether they will actually go forward and accept any of these refugees? We generally don't know. I don't think they will. I generally don't think they will, but maybe this might cause a split within the Tory party that we've been talking about for a while. Because it does certainly do look like that some Conservatives are very much on the page that they do not want to be seen again as the nasty party and want to try and buck that image. And I think that they know if they don't do this, they don't accept these refugees, and we do start to see, the Taliban start to enact retributions against, the people of Afghanistan, then I think they know they're going to be in for more of a drubbing, potentially at the next general election. And, it made depressing viewing. I'm not going to lie, it made depressing viewing. It was bewildering to see Conservative MPs saying that we should accept refugees after them, since 2016, going back to, of course, the Syrian crisis, saying that we, shouldn't be accepting these people, or we've already taken enough when we barely took anyone. And of course, what are the consequences of this, of course? Well, ultimately, I've just mentioned one. If the Taliban do start to enact, retributions against the people of Afghanistan, then the Tories are going to be in for it. They are going to be in for it. We've also seen, again, as we mentioned at the beginning, a realisation that Britain isn't as powerful as many of the Conservatives often claimed or made themselves out to be. So that indeed could come to some interesting conclusions, shall we say, about the future of the UK and this global Britain policy that many of the Conservatives are indeed clinging to. So it does make, I think, for interesting times in the Conservative Party. I do think that we are going to potentially see some very significant times going forward. And like I say, they were called back for a day. There was a lot of talk, a lot of discussion. And I think when the MPs get back, it could be very interesting. It could be very, very interesting indeed. So, as always, thank you for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a One Off Nation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.